Good morning, everyone. I don't know if I'm a minute too soon, but very welcome to this session. I have the privilege to just welcome Ishana from UKZN to this session, and we're looking forward to your presentation, Ishana. If you can please introduce yourself, then we can start with the session. Thank you.
Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you, Ishana.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Okay.
Ishana. Sorry.
No, it's good. You can continue. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Ishana Gangaram. I'm from the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and I'm one of the instructional designers. I work a lot with the College of Health Sciences. So today my presentation focuses on creating engaging and immersive learning experiences with scenario-based learning activities by leveraging micro-learning strategies. I aim to highlight the advantages of combining micro-learning and scenario-based learning to enhance learner engagement, knowledge retention, and the application of skills in realistic contexts. So remote experiences that leverage technology became a vital part of teaching and learning strategies. The pivot opened doors to experiment with new applications of technology and deeper adoption of technology-enhanced learning, and to start thinking differently about the need for physical spaces. So at UKZN, health professions students struggle to get adequate time and exposure in terms of the hospital ward rounds and clinical settings, thus limiting their engagement in communities of practice. They also train on a decentralized training platform, hence the need to assure consistency in the standard of teaching across the platform. The emphasis of this presentation is on the practice of an instructional designer in relation to ideation, design, development, and the build of the scenario-based learning activity using micro-learning strategies. So what is micro-learning? It's an instructional approach that delivers content in small, specific bursts, focusing on a single learning objective at a time. This strategy breaks down complex topics into easily digestible, concise, and targeted learning units. Micro-learning can be in the form of videos, interactive quizzes, podcast, infographics, and scenarios is what I'm going to focus on. It affords the learner engagement with the content in a concise manner repeatedly. It is particularly effective for reinforcing learning, addressing specific learning objectives, and caters to learners' preferences for brief and targeted learning experiences. Micro-learning encourages repetition and application over time. Key elements for a learner moving from a novice to a skill, to an expert in a skill, are time and experience, and micro-learning concepts and methods fit this narrative. So micro-learning fits in with the pedagogical perspective of Hermann Ebbinghaus's forgetting curve. The forgetting curve illustrates that when we learn large amounts of information, we remember the bulk of it immediately, but then the knowledge retention drops steeply after around 20 minutes, resulting in the tendency to forget new information. Ebbinghaus's research noted that memory is inconsistent. It can increase, decrease, and replenish. This research led to the development of the concept of spaced learning, which implies that learning is more effective when it is spaced over time. Information is reviewed at regular intervals over time and is deemed effective because it helps to reduce the forgetting curve. Scenario-based learning immerses learners in simulated situations using interactive stories that adapt to their choices. This active learner-centered approach mirrors real-life decision-making, enhancing contextualized practice. Learner interactivity shapes the storyline's path, emphasizing social interaction and collaboration. Scenario-based learning ranges from simple statement choices to complex branching decisions, offering diverse learning experiences. It reinforces learning and proficiency by enabling learners to apply skills in a simulated real-world context. And fostering a deeper understanding. Ultimately, it provides a dynamic and engaging and effective method for learning and skills development. Scenario-based learning also aligns with situated learning theory, as it embeds education in a realistic context and that employs simulated scenarios where learners collaborate to solve problems. Situated learning, developed by Lave and Wenger, is an educational theory emphasizing real-life learning contexts. It revolves around 4 essential elements: content, context, community, and participation. In this approach, learners engage in authentic learning experiences within a community, allowing them to apply their knowledge to real-world situations. The theory stresses the significance of the social environment in the learning process. Microlearning simulation is a novel learning strategy that is highly effective and growing in popularity. The strategy of combining microlearning design with scenario-based learning promotes focused delivery, efficient comprehension of key concept, and lays the foundation for engaging and immersive learning. Students get enhanced learning experience through engaging and memorable content delivery through immersive learning. There is increased flexibility as content is accessible on any device, anytime, and the short length of activities fit busy schedules. It allows for versatile usage of content, either as the main training method or supplementary support materials. The content is easy to revise as it is short, simple content allows for quick and hassle-free updates. There is increased learner engagement and motivation to learn in simulated practice environment. Focused delivery and active learning approach aid effective information retention. It enables learners to apply skills confidently in realistic context and develop competence to perform in their professional roles. Traditionally, medical students are given a paper-based clinical case as a scenario, and discussion takes place either in person through discussion forums or group assignments, etc. While working on the project on interprofessional practice and collaborative team-based care, I thought about how to integrate the graduate attributes into the clinical case using technological applications. I wanted to bring the case study to a more visual platform and the learning context to go to the learner rather than the learner going to the physical learning environment. So branching scenarios and microlearning are concepts popular to the corporate training world. Hence, I consulted the works of industry thought leaders and established a logical process to build a scenario incorporating clinical case, focusing on a single element of graduate attributes. I used the 5 steps from design thinking to guide the instructional design process. So at Empathize, I aim to understand the learner's needs and context through polls and observations, and I engaged with clinicians to gain insights into the real-world challenges and solutions of the clinical case presentations. The next step is to define the specific goals of the scenario and set the foundation for the entire design process. I mapped out a microlearning strategy and defined learning objectives. Then in the ideate phase, I based information on the clinical case. I brainstormed, and I would encourage that a wide range of ideas for the story, character, and challenges be generated, and it would fuel innovation. To outline the content and structure of the scenario, I used mind mapping techniques and storyboarding. Prototyping helps visualize the components and interactions. I then built the scenario learning context in PowerPoint with interactivity functions. I sourced input and comments from 3 physicians and attended to the recommendations. And then in the physicians piloted the test, the scenario with a small group of students. The aim was to observe how learners interact with this form of learning and gather feedback on its usability, engagement, and effectiveness in achieving the learning objectives. We'll use this feedback to improve the scenario. And after the pilot test is complete, the final build of the scenario will be done in Moodle using the lesson tool. So it was quite challenging for me to write the scenario as a micro-learning activity. I focused on, I had to refine the learning objectives until it was very clear and specific, and I focused on one topic and chunks of content. Then I verified with the physicians that the content extracted was, from the clinical case was relevant to the topic. And then once I wrote the opening scenario in line with the micro-learning language, I plotted it as a central idea on the mind map, and then designed trigger events where learners were presented with the situation that needs a resolution. This is a point where branching happens, A visual representation of the choices and outcomes and overall structure makes it easier to design and implement a compelling, engaging microlearning experience for the learners. Storyboarding visualizes the scenarios, components, and interactions, and it involves creating the story in a sequence of rough sketches and images that outline key scenes from the scenario-based learning activity. And the scenario building is the process of actually constructing the learning context. So here are a few examples. The top left-hand corner has the actual case presentation, and then there are decisions that students would make on that. And then based on those decisions, they would have this decision-making place, and they would get a response and feedback. Another scenario was where it's a straight case and the options, and then based on the options that they choose, they get the feedback. Another case that I had also made was where communities of practice, and I outlined the case, the instructions, and this was a video that would sort of precede the questions that would follow for the scenario. And then in this one, it's also a ward round situation where the options are provided and the students click on the options, and then they would get their feedback. The beauty of this is that it can also be then turned into a cartoon because microlearning can be used in different learning activities. So basically, in conclusion, microlearning, scenario-based learning activities can be a valuable tool for healthcare professions, education. Well-crafted scenarios enhance learner engagement, encourage critical thinking, and provide a safe space for learners to practice decision-making skills. Ultimately, it leads to a more immersive and effective learning experience post the knowledge acquisition. Scenario-based learning activities aim to support learners steadily improve their proficiency in a safe environment, and the reinforcement keeps the forgetting bay at curve. And these are just some of the references. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ishana, for a very insightful presentation. We will now open the floor for any questions. Please raise your hand if you would like the opportunity to speak, or also you are welcome to post any questions in the chat. I don't know, is there any questions for Ishana? I really love the way that, or the framework that you've used. Ishana, I really think that that is something that could guide us all when we go into scenario-based learning. It is really tedious for me if I think about it. It feels like something that will really need very good insights, but your framework will really help, I think. Thank you so much. I see Denise's question there. Sorry, Ishana, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was saying that this is actually, it's a pilot kind of project that we are doing. So we haven't actually collected much data as yet, because we've just like a handful of about 8 students have been, have been tested on this. So there's still quite a lot of work to do in terms of this, but building the scenarios itself is quite a challenging exercise, and also using it as a using micro-learning, because you want to compartmentalize each section so that the learner can go back to it repeatedly.
Yeah, that's true. So I see that Mariana, your hand is up. Do you want to ask something?
Yes, thank you. Ishana, has your university got a policy on micro-learning in terms of how it fits into its credits, how it notional hours?
No, we haven't. So micro-learning anew as a strategy is what we are introducing from the instructional design team. So we haven't had any discussions or any sort of protocols or anything on micro-learning. But because it's something that is in the health professions, education, that is spoken about a lot. to actually explore that, because we had another project which was interprofessional education and collaborative teamwork. And while working on that, we learned we needed to know how to infuse the HPCSA graduate attributes. So that's how we came up with scenario-based and micro-learning, putting it together. So yes.
Thank you, Ishana.
I see that Andrew also has a question here in the chat. He said, when you are creating micro-learning scenarios, what length of notional hours do you tend to aim for? And he also wanted to know if the scenarios are they predominantly text-based, or are you looking at video case studies, interactive game simulations, as different strategies will also affect the duration of the engagement?
Okay, we haven't put this activity as a notional hour. It's at the moment it's sitting as a supplementary exercise for students to do. So we haven't had that conversation as yet. So yeah, that's I think the first part. So this is just something that's very novel at the university. And our aim was, because of the decentralized platform and the overcrowded ward rounds, so we were looking for something supplemental that would give the students the exposure to that. And so that's how we are exploring scenario-based learning and micro-learning strategies.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ishana. We are going to, everyone must exit this now and go to the next session. I see that you still have questions in the